So Donald Trump went viral once again, this time for hugging a black voter at a Chick-fil-A, or at least that's the way that the right-wing media is trying to spin this thing. I want you guys to take a look at this clip, and then we're going to come back and talk about how it was all just staged.
Well, we took care of those colleges. And
sure did. Much better than Biden did. So I want to know. This is Clark Atlanta. This is Spelman. This is Morehouse. This is Morris Brown. Wow.
Isn't that great?
So I don't care what the media tells you, Mr. Trump. We support you.
We love you.
Okay, 4 p.m. We've been 4 p.m.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
Please
So to people out there who do nothing but watch a steady diet of Fox News and listen only to right-wing influencers, then I can see why they would think, hey, look, this black lady got really excited and she jumped up and Donald Trump gave her a hug and she shouted she made it, and now look, black people are getting behind Donald Trump. But what they don't realize is these are all staged events. They're all planned in advance, because this wasn't some random voter the way the right-wing media is trying to portray it. It wasn't just some random voter who suddenly got excited to see Donald Trump. The lady's name was Michaela Montgomery, and she works for a group called Blexit, who used to be controlled by Candace Owens and now is controlled by Turning Point founder Charlie Kirk. This lady has been a political consultant for years. They put her there to have that moment. And notice what she said. Oh, we don't care what the media says. We love you, Mr. Trump. And she did that so they could hand it off to these right-wing influencers who would run with that and say, see, look, black people loves Trump. And they'll sit back and they'll say, oh, look, watch these liberals' heads explode. This picture hurts their heads. Liberals can't take it. It's not that we can't take it. It's that we see through it. We see these events for the staged theatrics that they are. Because every Donald Trump rally, every event starts and stops the same way. He flies in his big Learjet. He gets off. He's got, law enforcement officers all over the place to watch him come in. They've got tight shots of the crowd with people right up front cheering for him. And it usually either starts or it'll stop at a fast food place every time. And then he gets up on stage, and behind him in the camera shot, he's got people in shirts that says Blacks for Trump. And he'll turn, oh, look, I got my blacks. I love my blacks. I mean, and people don't just see how blatantly obvious this whole thing is. And he'll sit there and he'll go through all of his same old tired talking points. He'll go out to some fast food place. He'll hug somebody. He'll get a shot of it. They've always got the cameras. The cameras are always there to capture these moments. And then he gets back on his Learjet and flies back to his golf course and parties with his rich buddies. And they say, we can't take it. It's not that we can't take it. It's that we see through it. How many times has Donald Trump staged things like this? He staged he had the fake union rally. Remember that, where he had the workers? These people weren't even auto workers standing there holding a sign that says union workers for Trump. And what's funny about all this to me is he'll go out there and he will bash everybody. And then he will get somebody to wear a t-shirt representing the group he's bashing and turn around and go, see, I got my union workers, I got my blacks, I got my Latinos. But everything he says and his whole platform is built to destroy people like that. Why can't people see through it? Then he claimed that he talked to a murder victim by the name of Ruby Garcia. He claimed that he talked to her family and they told him these things. The family was irate because it turns out he just read what they said from the New York Post. And then when the train derailment happened up in Ohio, he went up there and promoted his Trump water. Do you guys remember this?
Because we're bringing thousands of bottles of water, Trump water, actually, most of it. Some of it we had to go to a much lesser quality water. You want to get those Trump bottles, I think, more than anybody else. But we're bringing a...
I heard Gene Simmons from KISS one time say that if an item was big enough to have the KISS logo on it, it should have the KISS logo on it. And Donald Trump has adopted that same type of mentality. The guy can't even give somebody a bottle of water that he don't have to stick his name on it. So it's Trump water. It's the best water. I have the best water. He has put his name on water. He has put his name on paper towels. He's put his name on Bibles. And people don't call him out on it. I mean, we do. But his side just sits there and laps it up. Oh, he's a man of the people. But this man of the people gets back on a Learjet and goes to a place where he wouldn't even let you park your car. You wouldn't be allowed through the front door dressed the way you're dressed. You wouldn't be allowed to be anywhere near him. And it reminds me so much. I highly recommend it if you've not seen it. Go out and check out the movie. It's an older one, but it's Leap of Faith with Steve Martin. He plays like one of these faith healers doing a bunch of tent revivals. And he's got a group of people. One of my favorite actors of all time, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it. It's a great movie. They go around to these towns and they get information on people. They gather all this information on people, and then they go out. Steve Martin gets them on the stage and starts saying, you're struggling with cancer and you just had a car accident. And they're going, oh, wow. The people are duped because he sent his people into town beforehand to investigate everything and go around and get stories from people, and then they fed them to him. And he's got a wire in his ear with people telling him who to point to and which row to point to. And then the people in his entourage are all in on the joke too, because they will literally wheel up there in a wheelchair, and they can walk around. They're perfectly able, but they'll wheel up in a wheelchair and he'll lay hands on them and they'll jump up and throw their arms in the air. Praise the Lord, it's a miracle. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He is borrowing from that type of rhetoric. He's borrowing from the WWE. We got to remember, he is in the celebrity wing of the WWE Hall of Fame, and he's borrowing from that type of rhetoric. He's also borrowing from old stunts that like Colonel Parker pulled back in the day with Elvis Presley. Colonel Parker would not let Elvis into certain venues until he could absolutely fill it to the brim. He wouldn't let him play in a stadium before he was ready. He would purposely book Elvis in the smallest room he could find, so they would have people lined down the road, and then he could say, hey, Elvis had the place packed, and there was people lined, there's people lined for 3 blocks to see Elvis. Well, yeah, that's because the place was so small a cat couldn't turn around and take a piss in it. And they did that so that it would look like Elvis was bigger than he was. They always did that. And at wrestling events, there's a lot of times that back in the day when they would pan the camera to one side, or they would just have everybody sit on one side of the stadium. Then they do these big broad angle shots and make it look like the place was sold out, and they would filter in noise to make it sound like the crowd was cheering. Guys like Hulk Hogan was walking to the ring in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was supposed to be the hero. The crowd was booing him, but they would pipe in cheers into the crowd so that it would sound like he was getting this big ovation. He wasn't getting. And Donald Trump is doing the same exact type of shit. And he gets by with it. And people gives him a pass for it, and they get more mad at me for pointing stuff like this out and more mad at the Midas Touch Network for pointing it out. Go check out Midas Touch's articles on this. They've made so many great points showing how this was all just one big staged op. But people will get so mad at us for pointing it out and never mad at Trump. Never mad at the right-wing influencers who are just playing them, who are just grifting them and conning them. I'm not sitting here asking for your money. I'm not sitting here trying to sell you everything. I mean, yeah, I have a merch store like everybody else, but I'm not out here trying to put Brando's name on water, and I sure as hell ain't going to put it on a Bible. I'm not. That's not what we're about. They're sitting there grifting and they're conning people. And I saw people say things like, well, they don't want to call Donald Trump out because if they do that, if they call out Donald Trump, then they'll have to admit they was wrong. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's that they would have to admit they've been played. I think it's because then they would be held accountable for everything they've said. See, he empowered them to say all the quiet parts out loud. You take him away, now they're left solely accountable for that. They have to answer for why they said that, and they can't just kind of pawn it off on him. He's their scapegoat. He's the guy they can turn to and say, yeah, that's our guy. He speaks for us. They don't want to call him out. Yeah, they don't want to, of course they don't want to admit they were wrong, but more than anything, if they admitted they were wrong, they would then have to face accountability. And they wouldn't have that protector standing over them to allow them to be the assholes that they are. That's why they won't turn on him at the end of the day. But anyone that's, that felt warm and fuzzy inside and went to work and said, look, man, black people are getting behind Trump. Yeah, the NWO jumped Sting, too. You want me to tell you that story?